Happy Wednesday and Thursday. Hope you're doing well this week. We're going to keep working with ratios, so for those of you who weren't in class, please watch this video, answer the questions in Edpuzzle so you can get a review and earn those points. Alright, we are going to look at some proportional relationships in a lot of different forms like we did earlier this week, but now you're going to have to show that you can work with them in IXL. So, we're going to aim to get 60 points in these sections. So some of the sections have to do with tables. I took some screenshots of the sections you need to do. And so I just want to look and identify a couple things. So first it's going to ask, what is the constant of proportionality? So remember, we just want to say, how do I multiply the left side to get the right? 1 times what is 4? Oh, it's 4. And 2 times 4 is 8. And 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 4 is 20. Lovely. We want to make sure that that number is the same, that it is constant. So it will be 4 bales per wagon load. If we were to try to take that further and it asked for the equation, it would just be y equals, it's always going to be y equals blank x, and in this case it's 4. That's right. The constant of proportionality becomes the equation. Boom. So, same thing happens. What's the constant of proportionality? Here's another problem. 5 minutes. Ooh, this is getting smaller. So I want to remind you, we can always go the opposite way to help us out. Remember that I'm not certain how to go from 5 to 1. But what if I went from 1 to 5? What would I multiply by? 1 times what is 5? Oh, 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 5 is 20. Lovely. Now erase those and make that a little bit cleaner. So if going this direction is times 5, how do we go back the other way? So this has to do with reciprocals, which we've talked about for a couple weeks. And so what we do is we take that 5 and we turn it into an upside down fraction. So it's going to be 1/5. And so if we pull out a calculator, 15 times 1/5 is going to give us 3. That one checks out. 20 times 1/5 is going to give us 4. That one checks out too. So it's 1/5 pounds per minute. I know that seems like a tricky answer, but it's going to come up. So we have to just make sure we know how to turn this 5 the opposite direction, makes it 1 over that number. Okay. Ooh, the birds are going crazy outside. Alright, so again, we have to do that same thing when we see a number that is ugly. And we've done this before. Remember, we've revisited fact families. We said 20 times something is 3. 20 times 20 times something is 3. Remember, we can move that around into a division problem. 3 divided by 20 is that number. And remember, we can write 3 divided by 20 like that. So we see 3 and 20, and we make it a fraction. Okay, some of these are going to get really ugly. So what I would recommend, the first one you should definitely be able to do. The second one should be a challenge, but you should be able to figure it out. And then this third group, that might be a little tough. You can always stop and get many points. If you don't quite get to 60, that'll be okay. Okay, you want to get far. Okay. Then we're going to see problems with graphs. And it's going to ask you a problem like this. Do x and y have a proportional relationship? Hopefully, you remember from earlier in the week, there are 2 things we have to look for. The first thing is it's got to be a straight line. Is this a straight line? It certainly is. And hopefully you remember the other thing is that it has to go through the origin. Does this one go through the origin? No, it does not. So this is going to be no. Every graph has to be straight, has to pass through the origin. Alright, so then it's going to show you a graph like this, and it's going to ask you, what is the constant of proportionality? Write your answer as a whole number or a decimal. So this is going to be pretty tricky, but we look where x equals 1, and our y value is our constant of proportionality. So in this case, our constant of proportionality is 5. look where x equals 1. Okay? So then it says, what's the equation? Well, remember the formula from before? It's going to be y equals something x, and that thing is our constant of proportionality. It's our 5. So y equals 5x. There are going to be times it just asks you to write the number, like it does down here. There are going to be times it asks you to take that number and write an equation. Okay? It's going to do that, and then it's going to even give you trickier problems. This is once you get up into like the 40s and 50s. Okay? So we have to see, where does x equal 1? Uh-oh. It doesn't. There's no 1 on there. So we have to figure out a point on here. I could do 5 and figure out what that number is, or I can go over here to where x is 10. So this is where things get trickier, where x is 10. So the reason it's getting trickier is it doesn't tell us what 1 is. We have to figure it out. So in this case, where x is 10, y is 10. Oh, so if x is 1, we might be able to reason through that y will be 1. We can also say, well, I know how to move in a table. Divided by 10, divided by 10 is 1. So in this case, it's 1 megawatt per year. Okay, so you're going to have to be comfortable trying to set up a table. Those are going to be the higher end of them. Again, if those get too tough, just stop around 40 points and get most of it. Alright? Okay. This is where we start going into extra credit territory. So, you need to work on K1, 2, 4, and 5. If you want to go on to K8, you can. It says graph this function y equals 2x. What we want to do is we just have to put it on that graph. There shouldn't be, 10 shouldn't be on there. I shouldn't have had that problem. K8, sorry. Y equals 2x. So what we want to do is we want to plug in some values of x and figure out what y is. I'm leaving a blank column in the middle for work. So if x equals 1, that would be right here. That would be right here. Where am I going to put y? So I plug it in. 2 times x is 1 is going to be 2. There's 1 dot. Now I'm going to pick another number for x, like 2. Now I plug it in again right there. 2 times 2 gives us y, so that's 4. So where x is 2, y is 4. I put a dot. I'm going to pick one more number where x is 3. I'm going to plug it into my equation. 2 times 3 is 6. I go over to 3, I go up to 6, I put a dot, and I notice, what are the two things this graph should look like? It should be a straight line, and it should start at the origin. So you'll graph that in IXL. This one's extra credit. You only have to do it if you want. Okay? Alright. So, bummer that you couldn't make it to class. If you have questions about any of this, let me know, and I am happy to help you.